You want to make sure that you don't have any device on with the volume on there
Of course, yeah.
because we are having some we're having some feedback here. You want to make sure that you don't have any device on with the volume. Okay, so we should be good now. You
Okay,
can hear
perfect.
me nice and clear?
Yes, I can.
Oh, that's awesome. Good stuff. All right. Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Dr. Narine Dat Show. We are so glad that you take time to join us. For those of you who have been following us, over the years, will know that we have had the Let's Chit Chat with Narine Dat Show. We obviously still continue with the Career Dreams concert and so forth. But over the years, we recognize that there is a need for some positive energy and basically, a safe space for positive energy only. And that's how the Dr. Narendra show is born. And today is officially our first episode. And joining me this evening is a good friend of mine, a very young, talented Pandit Prakaash. We have him join us here today, but he will be with us for several different episodes because we are going to hammer out some very, important pieces that we feel important and necessary, for folks to know and things that people can, learn and utilize to really, be a better version of themselves. And so that's what this show is all about, bringing positive energy. And so we really hope that you can you can walk with us, really. We hope that you can engage with us, even though you may not be sitting with us here side by side. There's so many different ways you can engage, and we hope that you will take the privilege to do so. So, Pandit Prakash, welcome to the show. How are you doing this evening?
Thank you very much. Namaskaram. I'm doing very well this evening. I'm glad to be here, especially on a similar platform with you, especially after such a very long time. I know the last time we met was about 2 years ago almost when we did that interview. And ever since then, I was looking for the next time that we would do something like this again. So thank you very much for having me.
Right. Yeah, so we've had you obviously way back when we were doing the Let's Chit Chat with Narine Dat Show, but we have enhanced things, and I myself I've kind of stepped back a little as well to kind of focus on my own personal and professional growth, and here we are, back at it again, in different ways. And so what we are going to do, I want you to know that this is a safe space, so feel free to be yourself, right? And that includes the audience as well, too, the listeners, the viewers. We will have rerun on 102.7 CKMS FM and so forth. So we want to make sure that we acknowledge and we continue to, to be part of, our radio people, because that's how my journey started 2 decades ago. So before we dive into anything, Pandit Prakash, I know you're full, you have, you are a very knowledgeable young man. There's no question about that. And that's one of the reasons why we brought you here in the first place. But before we get into any specific pieces, and talk about, why you get into into Pandit and so forth, take a couple minutes, take your time, take it out, introduce yourself a little bit. Don't get into anything specific per se, but you can maybe share a little bit about you in terms of where you were born, a little bit about your school journey, not a whole lot, maybe a little bit about your family and just basic pieces. And then we're gonna dive into some pieces about you, and then we're gonna kind of take it a little bit further and kind of really get into the Pandit piece. So take it away, take your time, introduce yourself, so that people can have a good sense as to who you are as an individual.
Thank you very much. So, for those of you who do not know me, my name is Prakaash Latchminarine, also known as Pandit Prakash. I was born in Queens, New York. I'm currently 20 years old. I'm current junior at St. John's University and I also attended Thomas Edison High School for Technical Sciences. Currently in my third year studying cybersecurity with a minor in law. I'm also studying Sanskrit as well on the side, and also studying very much music with the Shankara Mahadevan Academy. Personally, I do have a very great aptitude. I love music. I also love technology. Technology is something that I can always talk about all day, every day. Same thing with music, same thing with my Sanatan Dharma as well. And I honestly am an individual who loves talking about detail and loves going into the intricacies of every single small little thing. Even though there may be certain small aspects to life, I love exploring each and every single small one and understanding it. And that really does speak volumes about the individual that I am and the individual that I try to live up as. Trying to be someone who goes over each small detail, someone who tries to consider the small things before the bigger picture.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that brief introduction. We will have obviously more opportunity to get to know you more because we're going to have you, not just today, but we're going to have you come back so that we can hammer out, different topics, things that are of importance, to us all, to society in general and things of that sort. And for those of you who have been watching our previous show, do know that we are very diverse in what we do here. So you're going to see a variety of different guests. But for me, I think it is so important for us to have guests like Pandit Prakash, where we can talk about the things that, that are of importance. And so let's get right into it. So Pandit Prakash, I mean, I have several questions for you, but one of the dying question I want to ask you off the bat here, if that's okay. I mean, you are a young individual. And I mean, you could have chosen so many different fields. I know that you are, professionally you're doing, you are in, in university doing one thing, as you mentioned earlier. But, Pandit is a very special, unique kind of thing. I'll say that for now, meaning that it takes special people. There's a lot of commitment to it. You really have to be in a special place or have that special, have that unique passion. For me, you have to born with it in a sense, all of these types of things. Out of all the things out there, why is it that you have chosen to get into Pandit?
Well, I would say that decision was made by myself when I was almost 6.5. In fact, the one time instance I can remember was when I first went to the Golden Temple that's in West Virginia. I was telling my parents that I want to become a Pandit, especially after I went and I visited and I specifically saw the Rath Yatra, when they took Vitthal, that form of Krishna, on the chariot through the entirety of that area. It was something that really inspired me. And I wanted to be one of those individuals that has very much of great knowledge in their religion. So even since then, I've had like this very strong desire to learn more about Sanatan Dharma, and that just led me further towards that path of wanting to become a Pandit. Additionally, I also do have many figures in my life that I hold to that standard that also have inspired me along the way. Even figures that are no longer in my life or figures that I have not even met before, including my grandparents who were once Pandits and also very big bhaktas of Bhagavan. And it's because of that, also how intricate Sanatan Dharma is, how complex it is, how many details there are, how many paths there are, that it really interested me into doing it. And despite, having school and everything as such, wanting to study cybersecurity, wanting to study law and many other things, I think Sanatana Dharma really caught my eye when I was younger. And ever since then, it's almost as if a path that is always endlessly opened up. No matter which way I went, I would always find myself on the right path towards following Sanatana Dharma and towards learning more about how to be Pandit, how to become an Acharya, etc., etc. Things like that. And because of those avenues that I had the fortune of receiving, it's my fortune that I would say that I am where I am today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This is very interesting. So you basically, if I heard you correctly, you basically started really young. The thought, was there at a very early age. So when you went to your parents and you said, look, this is what I desire to do, right? What was their response to you?
Thinking about it now, I would say their response was, well, definitely the response was no. You have to become a doctor, you have to become a lawyer, you have to choose a different field, but being a pundit is not all. And being a pundit is not sustainable, as many of us know. However, I decided that no matter what, I still wanted to learn more about my Sanatana Dharma. I still wanted to be a scholar in every regard. And I felt at that moment, even though I was very young, that I would find a way to figure it all out. I had that faith in my mind that I would find my own path. And I told my parents, no matter what, I want to become a pundit. And since then, they've been supporting me since day one. And I've had the fortune of having them train me and teach me in every aspect of how I should become a pundit. Also, I've had the fortune of them showing me the right way with specific teachers. My mother was the one who started me off with, in fact, learning Hindi because my grandfather used to teach Hindi. And when she used to take classes when she was younger, she used to run away. But she said to me that I always have to learn Hindi, that Hindi is the number one thing for any pundit, for any scholar of Sanatana Dharma. So ever since I started down that path, it's never stopped. It's like the ball started rolling and never stopped.
Excellent. So what do they think of your growth? Because obviously you have grown over the years, right? You've grown over the years in so many different ways because not only, through the whole Pandadai piece, right, in learning the scriptures, staying connected with different learned individual, as you mentioned, which I'm gonna get to in a few minutes. You also you play instruments, all of these types of things, you sing really, really well, you're into it, you spend, a lot of time practicing and all of that. What do they think of your growth? So assuming I'm having a conversation with your parents and I'm asking them, I'm asking them with you, let's say we're having a little bit of a chat with you, what do you think they will say?
I think, speaking about my mother, she would always say that there's always room for improvement because that's how she is. And that's also what I love about her, that she's always pushing me to improve, telling me what I can work on, helping me improve in every single way and aspect. But if you were to tell her to compare me from years ago, when I first started off giving katha and singing at 12, to now at the age of 20, she would say I've had a very big progress, a lot of progress made. And when speaking about my father, I think it finally clicked to him last year whenever the Yajna for Hanuman Sayanti about how much I've actually grown. And when he sat down, he was talking to me, he was telling me, I was honestly shocked because he doesn't really talk much about my
Mhm.
progress, but he said that he was very much impressed with how far I've come and also how much I've done. And
Amazing.
meant a lot
Uh,
to me when he said that. Yeah.
Amazing. And I'm not sure if your parents are watching, but hopefully if they're not watching right now, hopefully they will be watching at some point. I just want to say this. One thing I can tell you, I am a former assistant pundit, so I understand the importance of having, support and all that, because without any sort of support, it is extremely difficult to do anything. And so I just want to say thank you, by the way, thank you for supporting your son for really, um, you know, um, supporting for really doing what he loves doing. Because for me, he was born for it, right? He's here fulfilling his purpose, and it is a beautiful thing. Because we live in a world where we can get caught up in so many different things, and here we have a young man that's taking a really good path. How has your journey? And I want to remind you here that if I'm not clear with my questions, you can ask me to kind of repeat it. We try our best to stay on the positive side of things, because sometimes things might not come out too clear because I myself am adjusting to the previous, adjusting to the previous show we've had, things of that sort. How has your journey been though? Because I mean, you're young, you have to balance between school, you have to, keep up with, ongoing learning and all of these types of things. How has your journey been for you? Go ahead. I'm referring to the Pantai piece of the journey.
Right. I would say that's, everything considered. Well, Panditai wise, there hasn't been many obstacles at all. Sometimes, of course, there's, of course, challenges that will pop up, certain obstacles that will be there, but I've always found a way around them. And especially when I consider my path with Panditai alongside my own personal life with school and so on and so forth, I would say they've always worked hand in hand. There's never been a time in which they had to separate or one was blocking the other. There's always been this like flow of a river, I would say, that would continuously flow and never stop. And I've had that fortune for a very long time of everything just, working out the way that I wanted it to. And it's the proverb that I also live my life by, that if one follows Sanatan Dharma and lives their life by Dharma standards, then nothing will ever stop them. Jiska saathi hai Bhagavan usko kya rokega andhi aur tufan. If someone has Bhagavan on their side and someone follows Bhagavan, then what will stop them? Not any storm, not any flood, not any hurricane. Nothing will. And that's the ideal that I try to live my life by. And, even though there will be certain challenges, certain obstacles, I always find a way. Perseverance is key.
So two powerful pieces you mentioned there. Perseverance is key. And I hope that people are listening, right? Because the idea is we want people to kind of walk away at the end of this thing here, knowing that if they are, more knowledgeable now than they were like 2 hours ago, those types of things, right? I like what you mentioned, and honestly, I can only speak from experience. When you have God on your side, nothing else matters. Like that I can tell you for sure. And I get it that this is a touchy subject. And we're gonna get into the different form of God. We'll get Pandit Prakash to kind of respond to that because it could be it can be new learning for some people, right? And so forth. But we are not trying to put our values on anybody here. That's not what the show is all about. It's more learning and really put a spotlight to people like Prakash, Pandit Prakash here. So the one burning question I have to ask you though, because I think this is important, and I want you to take your time and respond. Because keep in mind, we have younger people watching the show as well too. People sometimes born in mixed family in a sense that I know people. I have a friend, by the way, who is a Muslim and he got married to a Hindu, individual, and they share things together. They try their best to support, each other. But then they also have kids in the way, all of that, and that can be confusing in different ways. But one of the specific questions I would like to ask you is, can you elaborate a little bit more or educate folks, educate us when it comes to the different form of worshiping? So, for example, in our case, in Sanatana Dharma, for example, we refer to Lord Krishna, we refer to like Lord Rama, Hanumanji, all of these types of things. And so for some people, and I know you cannot answer this, within a 2 minute per se, but try your best to kind of give a really good response so that people can hopefully do some, individual research and so on and so forth. Can you respond to that so that people can have a better understanding as to why is it that, we worship God in a sense, in so many different forms?
Well, first I want to cover the aspect of
Mm.
what Bhagavan truly is. According to Sanatana Dharma, right, there are two aspects of Bhagavan. There's Nirguna and Saguna. Nirguna meaning Bhagavan without guna, without attributes, without form. Nira, without guna, attributes. And Saguna. Saguna meaning with attribute. So Nirguna is when we worship Bhagavan as just Paramatma, as just what holds and binds this universe together. As you say in Bhagavad Gita, Mattaf Paratanam Nyadhar Kinchidhasti Dhananjaya Mai Sarva Idam Protam Sutre Manigana Iva. It's when we worship Bhagavan in that form that has no form. Something that is just like how a mala is held together by strings. It's a string that holds that mala together, but it has no form to it. That is called Nirguna Brahman. Many people will usually worship that form of Bhagavan by chanting, by praying, by putting their minds and their hearts into meditation in that form or way. That is a form of yoga. For many others, they worship Bhagavan in the form of Saguna Brahman. Saguna Brahman is, for example, Bhagavan Sri Ram, Bhagavan Shri Krishna, Hanuman Swami, Ma Saraswati. And the best way to define this is that there's Paramatma, but Paramatma takes many different forms. That one Bhagavan, that one God, takes many different forms to fit the many different needs that each and every single individual will have. So, for Bhagavan Ganapati, we pray to Ganapati so that he may remove all obstacles in our path. For Saraswati Ma, we pray to Saraswati Devi to grant us with knowledge, to grant us with vidya, with wisdom. For Hanuman Swami, we ask for his protection. We pray to him so that he may grant us bal, buddhi, vidya, strength, intelligence, and wisdom. For Bhagavan Shiva, we pray to Shankar Bhagavan so that he may grant us with balance and peace in our every single day life. And so on and so forth. As many facets as there are of Bhagavan, as many svarupas, as many forms as there are of Bhagavan, each and every single form is meant to conform around the actual desire or the actual needs of an individual who follows Sanatana Dharma. As such, with Saguna Brahman, there's many different ways one can worship Bhagavan. In fact, Bhagavatam talks about it. There is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnum, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Arjanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atma Nivedhanam. Navadha Bhakti, 9 types. Shravanam being listening to the name of Bhagavan, Kirtanam being chanting his name, Vishnum Smaranam remembering his name, Padasevanam serving his feet, Vandanam of bowing down to Bhagavan, Archanam making offerings to Bhagavan, Dasyam cleanliness, Sakhyam having friendship with Bhagavan, Atma Nivedanam offering your entire existence. I know I've very briefly covered the Navadha Bhakti, and of course there's a lot more intricacies to that, and hopefully we'll be able to explore that as we go on with this show and series. But in essence, there's many different ways one can devote themselves to Bhagavan, and many forms to conform to the many needs of the Bhakta. As such, Sanatana Dharma is, even though many individuals in Western theology will say that it is a polytheistic religion, I wouldn't say so, really. I would say it's actually a monotheistic religion. It's a religion that believes in one God, one Bhagavan, that takes many forms to help their Bhaktas. But that Bhagavan is one. Of course, this concept is very much very complex when you really think about it, and I would suggest anyone who really wants to learn more about this, please take a read of the Bhagavad Gita. I, in fact, actually do have a video online of me reading out the entirety of the Bhagavad Gita in 2.5 hours. That most definitely goes into more detail about it. But there's many other facets in which you can learn about this, not only just from Bhagavad Gita, but from the Upanishads, from Vedas, from Vedanta, etc., etc. And I would suggest that, as we go on, we'll definitely cover things like this. But if you're truly curious, I would suggest going and searching these different mediums.
All right. Thank you so much for that response, my dear fellow listeners and viewers. For those of you who have just tuned in, you are watching and listening, because we have folks listening on the radio as well, to the Dr. Narine Dat Show. We are joined by Pandit Prakaash. We want to dive into, pieces that we feel that is important. So the show obviously is trying to close a gap, and we're trying to, we're trying to basically create a safe space for positive energy only. If you're watching, listening, we do encourage you to take the time to kind of, share a page so that we can kind of spread, some positive energy, around, because it is much needed in society today. We started at 6 p.m. Eastern Ontario New York time. We're going to be here up until 8 p.m. So it's a 2-hour show. So we hope that you can join us. And for those of you who will be watching and listening after the fact, we appreciate all of you as well too. So Pandit Prakaash, thank you, by the way, for that response. Very much appreciated. Me growing up as a kid, worshiping Hanumanji, has always been a very popular thing. Based on your experience, based on what you've seen, and on all of these types of things, and it might be a tricky question in different ways. Is there, is there any, I don't want to use the word popularity, but is there, have you had the request, let's say, for example, to do like puja, Hanuman puja more than Lord Krishna, for example? I guess that's what I'm trying to ask.
speaking about like statistics of how which people or which devtas people prefer to pray to more. I mean, there is actual statistics of out there. I would
Mhm.
suggest to look them
Mhm.
in, to look
Mhm.
them up. I don't remember them off the top of my head,
Mhm.
but I do know generally in Bharat in India, one of
Mhm.
the most worshipped devtas is Bhagavan Shri Vishnu, especially in the form of Bhagavan Shri Krishna or Bhagavan Shri Ram. Second would have to be Ma Bhavani, Ma Durga in the form of Mahakali, especially. And third, the last time I remember, was Bhagavan Shankar. So those are the three main worship aspects of Bhagavan. But I wouldn't say that everyone should really subscribe or really entitle themselves to just worship one of the devtas. Me personally, I like to worship all of them, equally. I believe that worshiping Bhagavan Shankar, Bhagavan Vishnu, and Ma Bhavani in their own unique ways, separately, holds a lot of merit. In fact, in Bharat, in India, where we come from, and especially when considering education systems, there's three main panthas, three main divisions, three main sects of Hinduism, of Sanatan Dharma, that exist for understanding the Vedas through these three devtas and devis. You have, for Bhagavan Shankar, you have Shaiva Pantha. For Bhagavan Vishnu, you have Vishnu Pantha. And for Ma Bhavani, you have Shakti Pantha. Vaishnav Pantha, Shakti Pantha. So these pantas, not only do they, you know, d- tell you which Vedas or Puranas you may study, which specific mantras you may specialize in more, but they also tell in which specific pujas you're able to do more as well. Certain pundits actually specialize more in doing one puja than the other. For example, a Pandit from Vaishnav Pantha might be very versed in doing Narasimha Puja, or very versed in doing Sudarshan Puja, very versed in doing Venkateshwara Puja, compared to doing Ma Bhavani Puja. Or someone might be very much dedicated to doing Ma Lalita Devi's Puja, or to Ma Bhavani's Puja, to Mahakali's Puja, but they might not know a lot about doing Bhagavan Shankar's Puja, or do like chanting the mantras as such. But usually a Pandit is meant to learn all of that together. And that's of course what I try to do. I try to study all three of those main panthas at the same time. But speaking about which devtas worship the most, I wouldn't really say that we can actually put a number on that or statistic on that because it depends on the individual who they choose to worship.
I just thought I'd ask. That's all.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah. So, thank you so much for your response. So, I mean, and you mentioned something very interesting earlier, right? And I just want to have your opinion on this. You do not have to respond per se. But you mentioned that it is very difficult and challenging to make it sustainable, like meaning that, to really do this because a lot of work is involved, a lot of preparation is involved, a lot of dedication, all of these kinds of things. Um, if you want to respond, if you want to elaborate a little bit more on that, that's going to be great. But my main thing is, how is it that you balance between, trying to give it your best shot, you know, um, doing puja, stay up to date with all the necessary things that we do through the year. We have Diwali, we have, Hanuman Jayanti, and so many different things through the year. A lot of things, right? In fact, every day we have something if you want to go really deep, as you would know. But then you have your own personal, academic life, which is very different as well too. How is it that you balance the two?
Well, I would say, well, first of all, I never had an issue balancing both, but
Mhm.
it's more or less because I live my life as much as I try to, you know, with the Bhagavan. It's like almost as if I am having any trouble with school, I will take my mind off that by either practicing Sangeet, music, or perhaps learning or reading something from the Vedas or Puranas. Or if I'm having a difficult time understanding something from the Vedas or Puranas, I'll try to offset it by studying something in school instead. So it's almost like a very tender balance there is between the two. Managing them both, I never had an issue, but exactly how I've done it, I couldn't even tell you if I wanted to, because it's very difficult for me to explain how exactly I've reached this point in terms of balancing the two. Uh, Personally, with Sanatan Dharma, and with my schoolwork, I've always found that following Sanatan Dharma in the way of actually doing my schoolwork as well and living my life according to Sanatan Dharma has made only doing my schoolwork and following, college work a lot easier. Just living my life by waking up early in the morning, by, doing prarthana in the morning, I find myself every single day having no issues. having less issues. There will be issues sometimes, but it's not really anything that will bother me that much. Sometimes there may be things that can threaten to, harm my mental state. But once an individual tries to live their life in positivity with that positive outlook, especially because of Sanatan Dharma, I think it's very easy for you to overcome those challenges and obstacles. And that really tells about the core values of Sanatan Dharma as well. If one allows their mind to be consumed by negativity of the world, then it's very easy for them to fall behind. But if you keep your outlook on the world positive and you enhance it by doing worship, by following Sanatan Dharma, by keeping your mind pure in such a way with the practices of Sanatan Dharma, then it becomes very easy to manage everything altogether. And I would say
That's
that's what really has helped me in balancing.
for sure. Thank you so much. Obviously, this is something you are very much passionate about, so you make it work for you. So it is not a chore for you, right? You have that energy within based on what I'm hearing from you, which is awesome. I mean, based on what you're doing, you really cannot do it on your own, right? You mentioned earlier, you talked about different gurus and different, support system and all of that. Are you connected with any sort of, let's say, train or learn, knowledgeable pundit that continuously guide you kind of thing, so you can grow
Uh,
professionally and personally?
Of course, I still have my gurus in India who did teach me. Of course, they come here sometimes to America, sometimes very often, sometimes not so often. But whenever I have any questions, whenever I want to learn more, for me, I always know that I just have to wait until the nighttime and they're just a phone call away. And just having that, security of being able to talk to someone, especially a guru in that aspect, is, liberating for me. And I even have gurus in New York, gurus in New Jersey, who I can just call and they'll, be able to answer my question. And I would say being able to access knowledge that easily is what has made learning all of this much more easier for me as well. And not only that, but asking my gurus questions, but also being able to read on my own, being able to understand on my own has been very fruitful as well, especially when you're considering things like Dharma Shastra, especially when you're considering things regarding the Vedas and Puranas. When an individual is able to put their mind towards it and try to actually understand it, I think it becomes very easy to understand it, if you put your mind towards it, at least. And I've had the fortune of having many gurus, but I'm glad that I can just have one that's just a phone call away out of many of my gurus that I can just call and ask any question and then they'll be able to ask it, or they'll be able to answer it at least.
Excellent. That's wonderful. Having, and it's so important, by the way, it's important to have people in your circle, in your network that can help you grow professionally, right?
Of
And
course,
personally.
yes.
So that's good to know. That is good news. What is it that you hope for, for you in terms of your own growth when it comes to this whole Pandadai piece of things? Like, do you visualize anything at all? If there's nothing, you have in mind or nothing comes to mind, that is fine. I'm only asking you, generally speaking here. Do you visualize yourself to be, doing like, a specific thing, let's say 5 years from now when you're going to done with your school, and obviously 5 years from now, the assumption will be that, I mean, you will be more knowledgeable and all of these types of things, right? Do you visualize yourself do anything unique or different at all along the Pandita path of things?
My only vision in terms of when considering Sanatan Dharma Pandita in general is really just aiming to educate and spread my knowledge as much as I possibly can, and trying to simplify Sanatan Dharma for those who might find it very complex. I think that is one of my biggest visions, especially when I have had the fortune as well of going to Guyana twice, and I didn't really have any plans of going there, in the first place. But once I went there, I realized that my original vision was always to go and to explore and to also educate others about Sanatan Dharma and understanding the people of Guyana, or Matribhumi, our mother, or mother nation. It reminds me of the fact that there are many individuals who, are constantly very much confused about Sanatan Dharma. People who are lost, people who don't really know a lot about Sanatan Dharma. And that's why sometimes when their faith gets shaken, they may turn to other mediums. And I would say doing my best to try and help others in that regard, using knowledge of Sanatan Dharma, has become one of my main visions. I want it to be a day in which I'm able to also impart my knowledge onto others and try to support others in trying to doing the same as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Just before we continue, let me say hello to a few people very quickly. I wouldn't necessarily see everybody and whatnot, but I want to give a special hello to Leon. Thank you, Leon, for really taking control of our page there. We really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so very much. And for taking control, for really, sharing our page. We do appreciate that. I want to give a special hello to Reed as well too. I hope yeah, Reed as well too. Thank you so much and thank you. I can see that you see this as a beautiful thing. Um, and so we hope that you continue to walk with us so that we all could grow together. So, right, that's another beautiful thing. If you're watching us for the very first time, if you happen to scan things through, please consider sharing our page. The whole idea of the Dr. Narine Dat Show is to really create a positive space where, we can kind of, share, a positive energy and things of that sort. Even though it's going to be diverse, the idea behind it is to really, just stay as much as we can and the best we know how, stay on the positive side of things. We can easily get lost, right? With all the negative and challenges that's happening in the world today. So, Pandit Prakash, there are a lot of young folks, out there who are not seeing, things the way you and I see things, right? Maybe they're not seeing benefits, in terms of, just an example, benefits, to attend temple or engage themselves into activities as such and so forth for a variety of different reasons, right? And we are not, putting our values in anybody. We're not condemning people based on choices that they're making. But what would you say are some of the benefits, you've seen firsthand, not necessarily as a pundit, but engage yourself, with all the things that you'll be doing over the years. For example, like going to pujas, going to the temple, to the mandirs and things of that sort. What are some benefits that you can share with us with a hope that folks can kind of reflect back a little bit and say, hey, maybe there's something, maybe there's a reason why I should consider going.
And I think everyone should really also consider that when you're going to places of worship and you're going to pujas, etc., it's not just someone doing a puja, it's what we call satsang. As we all know, satsanga means to be in the company of those who are truthful, to be in the company of those who uplift oneself. And remembering the words of Adi Shankaracharya, very famous writer, nisatsangatve nisangatvam nisangatve niramohatvam, that when an individual engages at satsanga, it's very much liberating. It liberates one's mind. It makes it so that all the worries, all the concerns you may have before entering, and when you enter and sit down there for puja or sit down there for katha, sit down there for havan, it's almost as if everything melts away and you're just focused on worshipping Bhagavan. And that's how it should be, honestly. And not trying to, impose my ideals upon anyone, but I think everyone should just give it a try. When you go to satsang, just empty your mind. Don't let your mind have any other thoughts and just focus on what is going on. Just focus on what they're chanting. Just focus on what is being said. And by doing things like that, we're able to truly enjoy and enhance what we know as satsang. And especially with pujas and etc., that is a benefit that I see firsthand. When individuals come into mandir and they sit down for satsang, and you tell them to empty their minds and to focus on the katha, to focus on the bhajans, to focus on the environment, they're able to feel it a lot more. They're able to understand it a lot more as well. And I think that is the benefit of satsang in general.
Absolutely, that's right. I have to agree with you. When you go to the satsang, you have to be in the moment, right? And that can be difficult to do as well too, especially if it's new to folks to kind of get used to these kinds of setting, right? Some people, they started, going to these kind of setting, satsang that is, and things of that sort, as you mentioned, at a very early age. It probably was introduced to them, by their parents, grandparents, neighbors, and things of that sort, where some people probably didn't, they didn't have those kinds of opportunity, but it's never too late as well, too, right? So, thing. So how has the pandemic impacted things, how we worship now kind of thing. Because obviously during the heart of the pandemic, we had to adjust in so many different ways to still find ways to be, find creative ways to kind of keep going and things of that sort. I've seen some good and bad pieces there, and whatnot. Has that impacted the way, not necessarily you, but at least, the things that you do and so forth, how you worship and how people worship at all in any shape or form?
Well, speaking from a personal perspective and speaking about specifically, New York in general, I would say that there has been a little bit of an impact since the pandemic, but it's, slowly decreasing. During the pandemic, it was very common for people not to come to Mandir. It was very common for people to stay in their homes and to watch everything live or televised. Especially after the pandemic, maybe the first 1 or 2 years after it, it definitely was almost the same as well. People weren't coming to Mandir. But I see nowadays people are actually coming out more to satsang, people are coming out more to mandirs. So it doesn't really, I wouldn't say that the effects necessarily are very big nowadays, but they still linger somewhat, especially when we consider, how much time people take for doing puja, how katha or how satsang is especially scheduled as well. Certain aspects of that still linger. But generally speaking, in terms of the mindset of certain individuals, I wouldn't say it really has affected a lot in my personal perspective.
Right. I just thought to ask you because obviously a lot has changed since the pandemic and things of that nature. So we talk about personal growth, earlier, things of that sort. So generally speaking, and I know you do your school thing and so forth, and it can be extremely difficult and hard to keep up with everything. That's just a natural thing. But when you were speaking earlier, when I asked you about how is it that you balance doing all of these things, your response basically you respond where I can tell that there's a lot of motivation there, right? And it becomes just a normal thing that it becomes a normal thing that you do, you enjoy. It doesn't seem like a burden and all of that, which is a beautiful thing. But do you have any idea as to how many hours you set aside where you try to still engage with the musical piece of things, you know, practice even your vocal piece as well too, because you sing as well too, right? And sometimes um, people put in a lot of, they put a lot of effort in terms of preparing themselves when they're doing anything, whether that be, a puja for somebody, whether that be doing a sing session, whatever the case may be. Like, do you set aside time, where you're saying to yourself, look, during the weekend, I'm gonna set aside 3 to 4 hours just so that I can go through some new materials. I can, prepare myself musically and all of these things. Do you do anything as such at all?
For me, it's almost every single day that I try my best to practice and try to learn new songs. In fact, I'm always researching new types of new genres of bhajans. Marathi bhajans, Marathi abhangs are something that I've been really attached to recently. Rajasthani songs, there's many genres out there, and I find myself always looking to research more of them on a constant basis. So it's almost every single day that I find myself doing some form of music. Almost every single day that I also practice as well, at least for an hour every single day. It's because when I practice, it's very much calming to the mind. It liberates the mind in a lot of ways, more than one. It's when you practice and you actually go through the vocal ranges and you go through sargams, you go through alangaram, it's you're decompressing not only your voice but also decompressing the stress that may be on your mind. And that's something that's truly helped as well. But normally speaking, it's not really that I would spend a specific amount of time. I never time myself. It's just how much time I want to spend, I just spent it. Whether that's 1 hour or sometimes even 4 or 5 hours. It's just how it is.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I'm only asking so we have a good sense and we get to know you as well to our audience and viewers and so forth, get to know you. For those of you who have just tuned in, you're watching and listening the Dr. Narine Dat Show, and we are joined by the very, learned, educated, knowledgeable Pandit Prakash, who took time off his busy schedule to kind of educate us. We have decided to start off the Dr. Narine Dat Show in the way we're doing right now, because we feel that it is important, right? We want to make sure we kind of set a good foundation before we do anything else. So in a sense, Pandit Prakash, you are blessing our show here in a different way. You're blessing
Thank you
with
very much.
knowledge,
Thank you.
so,
Thank you.
because we do things in a unique way. And so for me, having somebody like you, it's a way to kind of bless the show, and things of that sort. Before we dive into other things, because eventually, folks, the viewers and listeners and so forth, you're going to see us having politicians and so forth on here because our prime minister um, is resigning. He's just hanging in there until they find a new leadership body. So we're going to have election here. Obviously, this coming Monday, the states they will officially have their new president. In Guyana, we have election this year. Trinidad is the same thing and so forth. So we will have all of that as well too, because everything is connected in some shape or form. But at the end of the day, it is so important for us to not to get caught up with all the busyness and that's happening in life. It's important for us to pay attention to what's important. And for me, despite the fact that I'm as open as you can be and I'm as diverse as you can be and so forth, I think there's no other way, I would like to start off the show in terms of our first episode, um, to talk about the things that we are talking about because they're so important. But at the end of the day, these are the things that matters the most, right? So, I hope that you see it as a privilege, Pandit Prakash, that we have invited you to be here.
Of course, it is my fortune that I am here today. Yes.
Yeah, that is excellent. And so, I mean, looking back at your life, right, and you're still young and so forth, but let's say you're looking back at your life, kind of thing, is there anything you will change at all about the choices you've made in terms of what you're doing? I'm referring to, the pandadai piece of things. I'm referring to the choices you've made in terms of your academic piece in university and so forth, or you're just happy doing all the things that you're doing right now?
I am happy with doing all the things that I'm doing right now, but I would say if I was to talk to myself maybe a couple years before, especially before the pandemic, I would tell myself to learn a lot more. Because, there's a lot I would have benefited from learning a lot more back then than versus right now. And I feel like there's still a lot of things that I have to dip my toes into, a lot of things that I still have to understand. But if I had that fortune of telling myself that in the past, I would definitely do so. Because there's still a lot of things that I want to learn. It will take me a time, of course, but if I had the time beforehand like I used to, then most definitely I would have done so. So it's that matter of that lost time that I may have lost, but otherwise I can't complain about where I am today.
Yeah, so learning is such of a beautiful thing, learning. I mean, we learn new things every day. I remember a former deceased, by the way, President Chedi Jagan, the Guyanese folks will know. He once said, that he does not have the time to learn, all the things he would like to learn because there's only so many hours in the day, right? This is a former president I'm referring to if you don't know. So, do know that you're young. I want to give you some tips and advices all too. You're young. You still have your whole life ahead of you. We are never too old or young to learn new things and things of that sort. But learning is such of a powerful thing. There's always things to learn. Things change all the time, and you will know when it comes to the technology part of things and so forth. Things change all the time. We always have to keep up with things. There are different ways, different strategies, all of these types of things to kind of do things. So to come back to this whole temple and mandir thing and participating and engaging and all that. Let's say you have folks who are watching right now, right? And anybody, right? Because we can have older folks as well too who are young at heart and all that. And they always, they have been, praying at home. They're doing, their puja regularly and so forth. But let's say they're feeling the need to do more, right? Do more in a sense that they want to engage, doing stuff in the community or engage, or being part of, or going to like regular Sunday satsang, things of that sort. They want to do more because they're feeling the need to do that, but they're a little bit hesitant to do that because they're not sure of the approach and all of that. Do you have any advice for them at all, or do you want to pass on that question?
I think that, well, for me personally, in my experience, I think there's a lot of people that are approachable in a lot of different mandirs. So if you do want that opportunity to serve, if you want that opportunity to help around at the mandir, for sure, just going up and asking that, "Hey, I want to do more in Sanatan Dharma and I want to come and serve more at this mandir." I think that type of conversation or having that type of talk with other people will be very fruitful. Otherwise, there's a lot of other things individuals can do as well in terms of just service at temples, service at mandirs, spending your time just going even after service, helping to clean up, helping to pack up, things like that are very much fruitful as well.
Thank you so much. So just before we continue with the Dr. Narine Dat Show and with my guest, Pandit Prakash, I want to give a special hello to Pandit Dev Ram Ratan. Thank you so much for taking a sneak peek. Obviously, we'll have to get you on the show as well too. So make sure you get yourself ready because we need you here as well to share your knowledge with us. We've had Pandit Dev Ram Ratan in the past with our previous show, that's Chit Chat with Narayan Dat, but we are we've gone a few notch up now, So we'd love to have you back. It's a matter of us organizing it accordingly. Let me give a hello to Hemnat as well too. Thank you so much for taking the sneak peek. I can only say hello to the folks who I'm able to see. I'm not able to see everybody, but do know we appreciate all of you. I want to give a special hello to Harry. Harry as well. Thank you. Thank you so much. And of course, we are going to have Harry as well too. Harry wrote several books, and we'll talk about his motivation for writing those books and all of these types of things. So that's a beautiful thing. If you are watching or listening us, please take the privilege to share our page. This is a space, a positive space rather, for positive energy. Very diverse show, but we are kicking off the Dr. Narine Dat Show in this kind of way because we really want to set good foundation in terms of what's important because everything else will fall in place. But for me, if you don't have a good foundation and if we are skipping the important things can easily fall apart, and we don't want that. So that's one of the reasons we're starting out the show the way we are today for sure. So Pandit Prakash, do know we appreciate you join us. We still have about an hour to go. We are almost halfway there. I want our folks, obviously we will have you come back several times because we will have to the audience, to the viewers, we will have specific topics where Pandit Prakash will hammer out for us, educate us, all these types of things, because we want to grow together, right? But I also want, to give opportunity to our viewers and listeners to get to know Pandit Prakash a bit more. So I have a few questions for you, where you will have an opportunity to kind of respond so that people get to know you as well too. I think that's important because a lot of times, we'll have people on, but we are not really taking the privilege to kind of get to know people. Um, I asked you a similar question, but now I'm being specific when it comes to your childhood, for example. Do you have any specific memory, as a child growing up at all? Anything that you're comfortable sharing here on the show?
There's many I can think of.
You can just share one that you're comfortable sharing, like a favorite childhood memory. And again, this is more for people to get to know you, more about you as an individual. Because sometimes in order for us to do business with us, I'm just using the term business for now, in order for us to, people to utilize our service, in order for people to have trust in us, believe in who we are and so forth, they have to know us a little bit, right? So this is also an opportunity for them to get to know you.
I would say one of my favorite childhood memories was definitely witnessing the Rath Yatra in the Golden Temple in West Virginia. Pulling that Ratha, pulling that chariot across the entirety of that area, and then going up to do Aarti and to make offerings to that aspect of Bhagavan Shri Krishna Jagannatha. I would say that was one of my favorite memories, especially growing up as a young individual. Given that opportunity and being able to do such a thing was really, really, I would say, fun in a lot of ways. And it was inspiring to me and really defined what I wanted to do as I really progressed with my life.
Amazing. You may have said it. I'm not sure if you said it or not. How old were you when you had that experience?
6.5.
Oh, wow. Oh, so I'm connecting the dots now. I'm connecting the dots. You mentioned about I believe you mentioned 6.5 when you really decided and say, look, this is what you want to do, right? I believe that's
Yeah, of
the
course.
age you can mention. So it definitely has an impact on you for sure. So it goes to show, right? It's so thank you for sharing this by the way, because it goes to show that how we spend our time, where we spend our time, all of these kinds of things it matters, and so thank you for sharing this because I think if people, take the privilege to engage their children and kids into, appropriate activities and so forth, a lot of good things can come out of it for sure. So that's awesome. So I'm glad you had that experience, and I'm glad that you didn't say no to it because you could have said no too, but you
Oh, of
didn't.
course. Yeah.
And here we are talking about it, which is awesome for sure. Absolutely. The reality is as well, though, Pandit Prakash, we, we live in challenging times. There's no question about that, right? And sometimes us as individual, we can be misunderstood based on how we carry ourselves, based on the things we say, all of these kinds of things, Um, uh, is there anything at all, that people, misunderstand most about you? Um, it is not uncommon, right? So, for example, sometimes I might put a post on there. I'm dying to put a post because I see it to be a good thing, a positive thing, and I want to share that with people because it's who I am, it's who we are. That's what we do, right? And then all of a sudden, somebody see it from a whole different lens, and they turn it and twist it into something else. So my question to you is, what do people misunderstand anything with you at all in terms of how you carry yourself?
I would say a lot of individuals do see me as a very strict and serious individual, and a lot of times more than once. And they think that in terms of the way how I act and the way how I am, they think I'm just very serious in general. So that makes me a little bit less approachable. Unfortunately, it took some time to eventually get that emotion out of other individuals, but it was definitely a very big misunderstanding a lot of individuals had. I do take what I do in Sanatan Dharma very seriously, but it doesn't mean that I am a less approachable individual, a less approachable person. That's just the biggest confusion a lot of people had about me in general is taking me as a very strict drill commander like individual who doesn't move on certain matters, but I'm also very lighthearted at times as well.
Thank you so much for sharing this openly. And so why is that, you think? Is it because is it like
I
face
would
expression?
say,
Sorry, you go
I,
ahead, yeah. Mhm.
well, not only just face expressions, but it's also because when it comes to Sanatan Dharma and what I do when I do my pujas, when I do my kathas, even when I speak during kathas, sometimes I speak with a very stern tone, and even sometimes I'm very, very, very dedicated and very serious about what I'm doing. For me, I see it on my side as dedication, but sometimes in the lens of others, they may see it as very strict or very serious. So sometimes that may scare a lot of other individuals into, speaking to me comfortably that way. But I should make it known that I'm not normally always like that, very serious, outside of being just a pundit. But I'm also a very lighthearted individual as well.
Yeah, so I'm so glad that you're taking the opportunity to respond because it's so important, extremely important for folks, for people to kind of get to know you that way. I think your response can make all the difference in terms of how people view things, right? Because let's say a few people kind of see you to be like a serious individual and so forth. Now they have a good understanding. But honestly, when it comes to the things that you do, the puja, those things are serious stuff. And so for me, depending, what you mean by your response, I think these things has to be taken seriously. Um, and let's say if somebody, invited you to lead that service per se, it is not uncommon for people to invite guests, whether that be families, close friends, and people in the neighborhood and so forth. And it is important for people to come to support that initiative, right, and not interrupt it in different ways, right? So in the terms of the seriousness there, I'm not sure what you meant, but your seriousness, but in terms of really getting and encourage people to kind of engage themselves, based on what's happening rather than, they're having their own thing, the corner, not paying attention to what's happening and so forth. Right? That's not good thing. So I think the seriousness, in terms of what you've just said, I think is important. So I think you hit it on the nail there. So what I'm trying to say here in a different way, don't change who we are. Right? There's time and place for everything, as you would
Yes,
know,
yes, of
right?
course, of course.
That is awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And this is so important. And it's so nice that you are kind of I know in the earlier part of the show you really hammer out some important pieces, and obviously we'll have you back as well too. But we also want to use this episode in particular so that people get to know who you are, right? That's important. All right. So in life, this is one of my favorite questions, by the way. So in life, it is not uncommon for people to fail. I have failed many times in my life. And for me, that is not a bad thing because we wouldn't always be successful at our very first try, right? So failure, I embrace it as an individual. Maybe 15, 20 years ago, I may have seen it differently because I live as a human being, we want everything to be perfect and we want it to be perfect, at our very first try, things of that sort. It does not necessarily happen that way, right? What would you say is one of your biggest failure? And trust me on this one, once you see it from the right lens, it is not a bad thing to share it here. What would you say is one of your biggest failures that you're willing to share? And how is it that you've, and what is it that you've done with that experience?
I wouldn't say that I've had a lot of big failures. I would say
Mm-hmm,
that I've had a lot of smaller failures that have
mm-hmm,
kind of, added up all together.
mm-hmm,
Um, it's more or less progressive, also growing as well, and becoming who I am today. I would say one of the moments where I really knew that I had failed at doing something was time management was one of my
mm-hmm,
biggest things. And when it really hit me was when I was doing Ramayana in the Park in New York here. There's an event called Ramayana in the Park that's held every single year. And I was doing it at the Adis Samaj Spiritual Grounds. And that Sunday morning, I was reading from the Bhagavad Gita. And I had made the mistake of not actually timing myself with the katha before actually doing it. And normally, katha usually goes on for like 1 hour, 1 hour and a half. But I went on for 2 hours and a half speaking about the Bhagavad Gita. And I would say, not really considering that time constraints and not really conforming around that was one of my biggest failures. And something that I've learned to work on as well is when I'm giving my kathas or when I'm, speaking as well, being able to gauge time and being able to time myself as I go is something that I definitely had to learn how to do. And I'm glad that I had that experience when I did, because, going further, it did teach me how to better manage my time, especially when I'm doing public speaking. Managing time is something that's very important, and understanding when not to ramble, when not to speak excessively, or when to cut down on certain things or to summarize certain points is very, very fruitful in public speaking. And having that experience did open my eyes to a lot more of what it means to be a public speaker and to speak more openly in public.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that's an important thing. So I'm glad that you learned from it. Because keep in mind, I'm not trying to make an excuse here, but people have, like a daily schedule, right? So some people may have kids, some people may have to work, next in the morning. Some people probably already had a long day, all of these types of things. So we have to be mindful of that. So I'm glad that you responded the way you did because it looks like you've even though you look obviously you were probably enjoying those 2 hours, right? Because you that's what you're passionate about, as you mentioned earlier. This reminds me of a satsang that I went to, and so I am really good with time management and so forth. But obviously I've made mistake along the way over the years, and so it was a beautiful satsang. Everybody, they were just enjoying the moment, and they after the end of after the end of everything, they continued to sing and so forth. So I remember very clearly the pandit said, continue to sing that, he's saying to folks, continue to sing that nobody goes to work in the morning tomorrow. And that was a big mistake because maybe he would maybe he was scheduled to go to work the next day, but there were other people, right, with kids and so forth. So I think being mindful of all of that is important, and not an easy thing, but it's important to kind of to keep track of these things, right? Because you want to make sure that people are getting something out of what you are presenting. Because if people get really tired, they will tune out as well too. And I have to share this one story very quickly, if that's okay with you. I remember I went and I wanted to visit Sri Prakash Desai when he visited Guyana. This is a good while I'm talking about. And I remember that he just did his reading for 45 minutes and that was it. Because he was mindful, of people's time and all of that. But the interesting thing is that people requested more from him. They wanted more because they felt as if the 45 minutes wasn't enough. And then he took the opportunity and he kind of dived into a few more. But he also, he was a teacher as well too. So can he understand the balance? So thank you so much for sharing this. This is extremely important stuff that you are sharing here. And I'm glad that you took the opportunity to respond. Awesome. Thank you. Um, if you could remember one thing, what would it be? So, for example, this is different than the childhood memory kind of thing. Sometimes in life there's that one or two things that will stick in our head that we just cannot forget because it could be they are those are things that are of importance to us. They have some sort of sentimental value to us and so forth. Do you have anything as such that you're willing and or willing to share in the show?
Sorry, I don't quite understand the question. Could you please repeat it?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. For sure. Sometimes in life there are specific incidents that happen and um we just cannot forget. So it could be it's a little bit different than the experience you share when you were 6.5 and so forth. There are like an incident that kind of happened, right? Could be good or bad. But sometimes, we always have that floating around in our head, right? We just cannot get rid of that thought kind of thing. Is there anything as such? And if there's nothing as such, then we just move on.
I wouldn't say for me that I would remember
Mhm,
any bad experience in
mhm, mhm,
specific because, personally, I don't like to
mhm,
dwell on the negative.
mhm,
I will say that, certain negative experiences that I may have had, I've kind of reformed them into trying to improve as an individual. That's why I
mhm,
probably don't remember a lot
mhm,
of them.
mhm, mhm.
I mean, but I've had my share of a couple of them, but not too many.
And that's fine. And so keep in mind, we are trying to get to know you as an individual. So you might not have a response to some of these questions, and some of them might not apply to you at all, just kind of thing, right?
Of course, yeah.
So that's awesome. I'm hoping that you've had many of this. So have you had any sort of great compliments from folks? I'm usually good at that. It's one of my niche. So when I'm with folks, I really try to focus, on the things that they're really good at, right? In my professional role, that's what I do. And study shows it's so important, right? For um, when the person receives those kinds of compliment, it is very empowering. Do you have any recollection of people compliment you? Um, I'm not sure, the reason behind the compliment, but do you have any recollection where you were complimented for some good things that you may have done or anything along that line?
I would say I've received a lot of compliments, throughout the years, but I wouldn't say that I've dwelled on them very much. In fact, it's I was taught from a young age. In fact, I was taught even by Vedas and Puranas that we shouldn't let the compliments kind of get to our mind in such a way. I do remember a lot of them. I know a lot of people have complimented me for the way how I sing, the way how I do my puja, the way how I chant, the way how I pay attention to detail, the way how I speak. Well, I've received a lot of compliments as such, but I really haven't paid attention to all of them because I'm not an individual who really dwells in compliments. In fact, if you tell me criticism more, I'll pay more attention to that than the actual compliments. But it's because I always like to focus on improving as an individual rather than just taking compliments at face value and staying content with just that. It's my ambition to almost go further beyond.
Mhm. Well, thank you for that. Again, we are just trying to get to know who you are. So there's no right or wrong response here per se. But I think you know, it's not as long as you're not allowing that to, to be, an ego thing, so to speak. That is a beautiful thing, right? Basically you do not want to allow any of that to really get in the way for you to continuously grow and things of that sort. But don't shy away from things of that too, right? Because if you're growing professionally, which you are, if you're doing good things, which you are, you want to sometimes you want to kind of enjoy those moments as well too, right? There's nothing wrong with that kind of thing. But I hear what you're saying, so you're not saying anything wrong in any shape or form, but it is okay for you to enjoy those moments as well too, but don't let it get to you. Like that's what I'm trying to say.
It's
That
not that
is
I don't
awesome.
enjoy it, I
Mm,
would
mm,
say. It's more or less that I forget about them, honestly. I
mhm,
don't really, I would say don't, I'm very bad at taking compliments.
mm,
I would say that I don't really process them
mm,
as much as I
mm,
really want to, but I do enjoy them and I do,
mm.
appreciate them from each and every single individual who does give them.
Yeah, no worries. So apart from the people in your network, your gurus and things of that sort. I know it is more related to your pandit eye piece of things. Do you have any other people who you kind of look up to, and you're saying to yourself, look, um, you know, um, these are the folks that always have to look up to because they're always moving forward. They've really done well in life. And not that I want to be like them per se, but, it's motivating for me to see that these folks have done so well in life that one day I want to be the best version of me kind of thing. Like, do you have people that you look up to? It's not a bad thing to have influential people in your life as well, too.
I think the issue is that I have too many of them. I have a
Oh,
lot of individuals I do look up
oh,
to.
amazing.
Especially in music, there's a lot of people I look up to. When I consider the old individuals, the people who have gone even past Muhammad Rafi, Kishore Kumar, and especially Kishore Kumar, how good he was at music, as how good he was at really capturing the emotion of a song or the emotion of a scene. That's something I always loved, something I always look up to, and something that I always tried to do in my kathas. Even if it seems like two different parallels, trying to capture the emotion of kathas almost as if it is a film is something that is an interesting concept and something that I try to do, try to capture the emotion. Kishore Kumar, some modern figures being, for example, Mahesh Kale, very famous singer of Marathi Abhangs. The way how he sings is something that it really inspires me, and the way how he's able to branch off into different genres, very inspiring as well. When considering other individuals in music as well, Kuldeep Empai, he has a YouTube channel, and watching how he promotes the younger generation and to learning music and into singing these gitas, singing these songs that are very much classical, very much ancient in a lot of ways, more than one, has really inspired me to explore more of older types of Hindustani classical and even Carnatic classical music. And when speaking about other individuals, I would say there's many other historical individuals that have inspired me. Mahatma Gandhi, when you're speaking about political leaders, when you're speaking about
Mhm,
Ronald Reagan in terms of how he actually communicates. That's something that I love about certain presidents in US history. They really
mhm,
know how to talk to individuals and how to communicate. And that's something that I also value as well. Communication and speaking to others is a great experience that anyone can have. And learning how to do that is also equally as great as well. Having that type of experience, the list can go on, and I can sit here all day and talk about the individuals that inspire me. But there's many of them that I look up to, and many individuals that especially when I want to do something new. Whenever I'm trying something new, I look at their experiences and I think to myself, how can I do my own version of it? How can I improve in my own way? What would this person would have done? What that person would have done? And what am I going to do based on what experiences they may have had? And having that type of inspiration by looking at many different people is really inspiring. And not only speaking about modern individuals, but even speaking about individuals from Vedas and Puranas. When you look at different gathas about different people, Adi Shankaracharya, one of the most inspirational uh, po- I would even call him a philosopher, someone who has made a lot of Upanishads, someone who was penned a lot of texts talking about Vedas and Vedant. Very inspiring. Bhagavan Vedavyas, the writer of all the Vedas and Puranas. List can go on and on when you speak about individuals that can inspire me, but or have already inspired me. But there's many of them, and I'm thankful that I've had the honor and the blessing of understanding, the various experiences they have had and understanding the impact they may have had in my life as well.
Great. Thank you so much, for that. It is a good kind of problem to have, by the way, to have, so many influential people that you can look up to. And when you responded, you said something very interesting. You said that basically what you've said, when you look and see all of those pieces, things that I've done, and you were trying to figure out, how is it that you can do, but kind of make it your own, right? Which is awesome because there's always things that we can, look up to and all that, but obviously you want to make it your own. So it is clear that you are on the right track, which is awesome. I want to talk a little bit about the musical piece because that's important because music is such a beautiful thing. Music is a really good therapy for human relaxation. Music itself, it's a powerful thing, just powerful. Let's talk a little bit about that. How did you get started with your musical journey? I guess that's a fair statement there.
Well, I first started when I was very young. In fact, I learned how to start sing. Actually, I started singing in Hindi before I even started speaking English, which was something that even thinking about it today, I was very shocked by it. But speaking about music in general, before I even started even considering or even started, learning how to become a pandit, learning Vedas and Puranas, for me, it was day one learning music. And music has always been something that has been liberating in that kind of way. My mother taught me how to sing when I was a very young child. And then eventually, as I grew older, she took me to different music schools, different gurus who taught me music. Panita Jeja, Kinar and Payal Singh, to other different singers as well, Ustad Dinesh Kumar Prabhakar, and a lot of other musicians I have had the honor of learning from. So it's not necessarily the matter of where I necessarily started. It's a matter of the journey that I've had was a lot more pleasant than I really thought it was going to be. And it's something that I love doing as well.
Awesome. Awesome. And so I know you don't like you love what you do in terms of about the Pandit IPs. You definitely, you're very much passionate about it. You dedicate a lot of time, all of that to make it work for you. But I'm aware that you don't like to talk about yourself much and so forth, but I have to put you in a spot here. So you have won singing competitions in the past, if I'm not mistaken. Am I correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Yes, if you don't mind, can you share that with us so that people get to know? Because for me, I see it to be a beautiful thing because it tells me a lot of things. It tells me one, you're good in what you do in that sense, but also it tells me that, you obviously in order for you to even get to that point, you definitely had to put some sort of effort in terms of preparation, all of these types of things. So tell us about that. For example, tell us why you enter, singing competition, because there had to be something there, kind of thing. What was the experience like, all of that, and then we'll get to the winning part of it. Take it away.
Let me think about my first singing competition. I would say the first one was the Kishore Kumar competition. That one was one of my favorites, in fact. I had a Hindi teacher who I learned from when I was in high school, and they recommended me to go and participate in the Kishore Kumar competition. And the way how they would do it was that each individual who was competing had to sing a specific song by Kishore Kumar. I believe the song was Mere Naina Savana Bhado. They had to give their own rendition of it. And the judges would then, compare the renditions and then decide based off that, who did the best in that. And then each artist or each singer had to, or each competitor had to produce their own song of Kishore Kumar, and they would also have to perform that as well. And it wasn't really my first intention to go and compete, but I really did want to sing Kishore Kumar songs because I do love all of his songs. His songs are very good, very uplifting as well. So I said to myself, why not? And I had the support from my father then at the time, who in fact, he's always supported me when it comes to music. He supported me even more than my mother has. And He almost trained me before I did that competition. And when I did that competition, I wasn't really expecting much. I wasn't expecting to win or anything. I just wanted to do it because, I enjoy singing and I just wanted that experience of competing in a Kishore Kumar competition. But much to my surprise, I did end up winning. And that's how it's always been with a lot of competitions. In fact, there was a concert that I had with one of the Indian communities. It was a concert at first, but then the organizer changed it to be a competition afterwards, and I was not even ready for it. But when I went and sang, I said, I'm just going to sing the song that I prepared. That was it, and I ended up winning first again. So it's not necessarily a matter of that I walk in prepared with the mindset that I'm going to go win. I just want to do my very best while I'm at it, and I want to uh, just put my all into what I understand about Sangeet and music in general.
That's awesome. And so, how old were you when you won the first singing competition?
It's a difficult question for me to answer, but I think I was around 16 when I won my first competition.
Okay, 60. So that's quite a few years ago. You're in your
Yes.
20s now, right? Early 20s?
I'm 20, yes. I
You're
turned
20
21
now.
this year. Yes.
Okay, yeah, you're still young. You still have your whole life ahead of you there. So, yeah. And when was the most, which was the most recent one?
Most recent, I would say around 19, when I was
Okay, so
19,
so a couple of years ago,
a couple
kind
of
of
years
thing.
ago, yes.
So will you? So I want to say this. I've seen, and again, this question is for you. This is not about you. Us comparing anybody here. People have, their own way of doing things. All of these types of things. I've known pundits who, they do the pundit work, they do like the religious piece, like the singing, the bhajan, out there, so on and so forth. But I also know that they have crossover. I'm going to use that term for now. They've kind of crossover and they do like Bollywood songs and things of that sort. So let's say somebody invited for a birthday and things of that sort. Nothing vulgar per se, but it's different than an actual religious ceremony and things of that sort. Do you see yourself doing any as such at all, or are you just comfortable doing what you're doing?
I mean, I wouldn't mind doing it. I've done it before in the past as well. Very low key events in which, a very formal events as well, while we're just singing. That is something that I've done before as well. But I wouldn't mind doing that.
Good. I'm glad you have that openness there. So that's a beautiful thing. That's for sure. So do you have a specific genre of music that you feel more? And because when people sing, they feel it from inside, right? Like Ben Parag, for example. There are certain kind of songs that he really loves. I know he's trying to add some chutney to it and so forth to try to show some versatility based on audience and so forth. But at the end of the day, he sings certain song really, really well, and he's really good at that, and we all know that. Um, yes, how about you? Do you have any specific genre that you really love and enjoy and you can do it more often, so to speak?
There's a lot that I actually love, but a lot of them that I don't really get to do very often. One of them being Marathi Abhangs. Marathi Abhangs are something that I love doing. Bhajans like Vrindavani Venu, or even considering Sukha Je Je Sukh, He Surano Chandrabha, songs like that. Those I really love that genre of Marathi Abhangs. But then there's also other genres like Rajasthani Lokgits, which are very good as well. Qawwali Geets, I love those as well, especially the ones by Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, Rahat Fateh Ali Khan. Those songs are something that I love singing as well. Another genre, well, just generally Bollywood and altogether, especially the modern Bollywood, I really love those genre of songs as well. A lot of varieties that I really engage with, especially even South Indian classical, North Indian classical. I grew up learning North Indian classical, but I really took a shine to South Indian classical, especially a couple of years ago when I was 16. I started learning a little bit more, started seeing more of the songs. Something that I love doing as well. I don't really subscribe or really say to myself that I want to study only one or sing only one type of music, but I want to learn all of them per se.
Awesome. Excellent. Thank you so much. So we have a little over half hour here, and I want to spend some time to talk about your journey and experience visiting Guyana. So most recently, you visited Guyana, but before we get into all of that, you will have to refresh my memory here. You were born and raised in the States, am I correct?
That is correct, yes.
And how about your parents? You don't have to get into details. Like, are they like from Guyana? Are they from Trinidad? Or from
They're from
India?
they're both from Guyana.
They're both from Guyana. Berbice, do you know where they're from? Berbice?
Port Moran side.
Oh, okay, Port
Yes.
Moran. Okay. So one of my sisters, she grew up in Port Moran. But anyways, so I should mention a couple things here before I ask you ask you about your experience. So for those of you who don't know, I was born and raised in Berbice, Guyana. So I grew up right by the number 63 beach. We used to have a very successful business there. You know, we were surrounded by the three schools, Tagore Memorial Secondary School, New Market Primary School, and Babla Nursery School. The post office happens to be right there, the agriculture and so forth. In fact, when I used to visit Guyana, I used to stay at the post office upstairs because the postmaster and us, we had really good relationships. So I used to stay there. But anyways, um, you visited there, and I've seen some. I watched quite a few of your presentation and things of that sort. I believe you also went to number 6970 Mandir as well. You have a recollection of that? Yes, I saw
Yes.
that. So I personally attended that that temple there. I gave a presentation there when I visited back and so forth. Pandit Prabhu, I believe he's in the States now in New York. He was running that temple at one point and things of that sort. I'm gonna leave it open and loose here for you because my understanding is that that was your first visit to Guyana. Am I correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And you have had the opportunity there. And thanks to the folks, by the way, the people who, who manage these temples and so forth for giving Pandit Prakash the opportunity. I think that was a good call. What was the experience like when you visited Guyana, never visited Guyana? It's different than New York City, right? Very,
It
very different.
was it was definitely a lot different than, the usual hustle and bustle of the actual city. It was a lot more low key, a lot more calmer, a lot more of a different environment and atmosphere that I was definitely used to. And it's something that was liberating for me, experiencing Guyana. The first place I visited in Guyana was Port Moran Berbice. I was actually staying in New Amsterdam at the Shri Krishna Mandir in uh, New Amsterdam there, Gay Park. Was very pleasant. I visited a lot of mandirs from there. I visited the number 69, number 70 Shri Ram Mandir, number 59 Shri Krishna Mandir, the number 48 village Shri Vishnu Mandir, Kuriverton Mandir, all the way in Skeldon, which was something that I didn't even expect to go there at first, but something that I really love, somewhere I really loved visiting, Kuriverton side. Visited a lot more mandirs, especially in Port Morant. Tain Mandir, one of my favorite mandirs that I also, love visiting as well. And one thing that I really loved about Guyana in general was the way how they built their homes and the way how they built their mandirs was very much like the way how they used to build them in India. The exact architecture, the old style was very, very nostalgic to see, as I would say the least. It was something that I loved seeing, something that I loved experiencing as well. And then I also had the fortune of going to Georgetown as well. I stayed in Enmore for a little bit of time. I visited the Shraspe Shri Vishnu Mandir. I got to see the Shiv Parivar Mandir run by Pandit Dev Gosai as well. And I would say I would share that same sentiment that, visiting these mandirs was definitely a lot different than visiting any other mandir than I had to, I had the fortune of seeing in New York, New Jersey, or anywhere on the East Coast. It was a different feeling you would get, like a sense of nostalgia almost. And I would say definitely meeting the people there, meeting the individuals, meeting the bhaktas there was also very nice as well, very welcoming to see individuals who uh, are very much like minded. And there were also individuals who really, really wanted to learn more about Sanatana Dharma, and a lot of people I had the fortune of messaging or seeing as well. So it was very nice
Well,
altogether.
thank you so much for that. Thank you so much. So in terms of the audience, the people that is apart from the welcoming piece and all of that, did you recognize any sort of demographic in terms of like age group and things of that sort that attended those ceremonies at all?
So I would say that more or less there wasn't a specific demographic I would say in general, But I would say per area, you would see either a large percentage of younger individuals, a large amount of the younger generation you would see in a mandir, and certain other mandirs you'll see only the older generation. I would say you would see a lot more of the younger people in mandirs that were in Georgetown side, but then there was also some mandirs in Port Morant and Berbice that I also got to see that had a lot of young people, and that's something that I really like seeing as well. When young people come to Mandir and they actively participate, it was very nice seeing individuals who were my age who were there. But I wouldn't say there's one singular demographic of people that were mainly attending Mandirs there.
And so, what was the talent like? So obviously, people played, the tabla and all of these types of things as well too, just like we do over here. And I mean, I've seen, things have changed over the years. These things are more accessible now. Many years ago, it was harder for people to have access to these instruments and things of that sort. Like were they able to play according to key and things of that sort? At least we're not putting anybody down here, but it can take a little bit of an adjustment if people never had the opportunity to practice together and write key scale, all of these things. Not uncommon. Did it fit with you? Did you enjoy the musical support, all of that?
I would say I thoroughly did, yes. I would say there's a little bit more of a match than I saw there compared to New York. No offense to any musicians in New York. But I there was a lot of musicians there that I did very much click with. A lot of drummers, a lot of singers who are very good, very very talented at what they do. I would say Guyana does have a lot of raw talent as well. A lot of talent that has to be explored. So that's very good as well.
Yes, yeah, they have lots of talent there. There's no question about that. That's for sure. So when I visited there, one of the things I noticed, I'm not sure if you experienced that or not. I find that there were quite a few people there, but they were not necessarily in the mandir. They were kind of outside. I'm not
And
sure if you experienced that at all. Did you experience that
n-
at all? Did you find it strange if you did?
no, of course, for sure, because something that I always like to do in my gathas is I always like to try to engage the crowd or engage the sabha, whether that is by singing any bhajans, dhuns, very something very simple, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. But even singing something very simple, it's almost as if when you're asking people to join with you, they're very hesitant to do so. I would say in New York or in other areas along the East Coast, people are very much, active in doing so. They want to participate. They're very much engaged. But in Guyana, it wasn't exactly the same. And it's my understanding that in Guyana, a lot of people don't really know how to engage because they're not really given that opportunity to engage while in kata or while in satsang like that. And that's something that really, made me realize the difference between Guyana and here. It's the matter of the fact that they really want that engagement, but they're not able to get it like how they normally do.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing this. It's a good observation, by the way. And I mean, it's an opportunity. We're not condemning anything here, but at the end of the day, um, sometimes we have to look for gaps as well too, and see what is it that we can do really to close that gap, right? And that's how the Dr. Narine Dat Show is born, right? Because we recognize that there's a need for that positive space and all of that. And so us addressing that, or at least us pointing that out, is not necessarily a bad thing. So hopefully nobody take it to offense here. Before we continue on, Pandit Prakash, while you maybe taking a few seconds to have a sip or two, I want to give a special hello to Dave Chetram, a very, very talented Pandit in the States, Connecticut, I believe, if I'm saying it correctly. He was the one, by the way, who I was assisting back in my earlier days, and I have to say that when I was under him and kind of trying to learn and all that, because I had a passion and so forth, I have to say that it was such of a good journey. And even though tonight we have Pandit Prakash, I want to acknowledge this while we are here. And while you are alive, Pandadev, I have to say that during our time, running the number 64 Krishna temple there, it was sort of a blissful time and a peaceful time, an enjoyable journey. I have to say, I really enjoyed that journey. And that's a beautiful thing. And so thank you for taking a sneak peek. Obviously, we've had Pandadev as well to um, uh, this is a different Dave I'm talking about, by the way. We have had a different Pandadev. Um, and so Dave Chetram are referring to here. And so we are going to obviously have kind of Dave Chetram on the show as well too. Um, I just thought to kind of acknowledge that. I think that's important kind of thing. Obviously, things have changed over the years. People migrate and all of that and so forth. But while I have the opportunity, I wanted to kind of mention that. That's for sure. Um, Let me see. Kamala. I want to give you, say a special hello to you and thank you for taking this sneak peek here. For those of you who have just tuned in, do know that this is our official kickoff of the Dr. Narine Dat Show. Even though this is the first episode of the Dr. Narine Dat Show, this is not new to us. We have over 20 years of experience doing all of these kinds of things. So do know that. For those of you who've been following us along will know all of these things, and we hope that you can engage with us again. We are hoping to kind of build relationship and maintain relationship on all of these kinds of things. Life is too short, right? So we don't want to get into all the little tiny things. It's not worth it, right? For us to kind of separate ourselves from each other for little tiny things. So we're not going to take that direction anymore, right? Because life is not perfect. Nobody's not perfect. So taking a different direction with the show here. So would you go back again? I'm going back to this whole Guyana experience here. Will you go back again? And my understanding of it, did you win there twice or was it just one time?
It was twice actually.
Oh, yeah.
The second time was very much unplanned. The first time was planned. The second time, it was because Bhaktas of Shrapse Shri Vishnu Mandir, they wanted me back for Navaratri. And I was thinking to myself, well, I'm not sure fully because I do have school, but one thing led to another. Everything just worked out, and I ended up going back there for Navaratri as well, which was something that I had a great time doing as well there. Hosting or having each and every single night doing katha from Srimad Devi Bhagavatam and engaging with the Sabha there. Very much pleasant. Second trip was very much unplanned, but very enjoyable.
And what was the kind of was it like a month apart? Was it a few weeks apart?
It was definitely a month
Fairly,
apart.
sorry,
It was roughly a month apart, but I would
a
say a
more.
few
Oh
less.
wow, oh
Yeah,
wow,
but it
yeah.
was it was a little bit less than that.
Yeah, amazing. So obviously you definitely had a good experience. You did enjoy your time. That's one of the reasons, you kind of took that opportunity, even though it was not planned, right? And for me personally, honestly, for me, it was meant for you to be there twice, right? You and I cannot change certain things in life. It was meant for you to be there. And I'm sure that you've made an impact. There's no question about that. Speaking, about that, you've also visited Canada. And I believe you came for the first time not too long ago, I believe late last year.
Yes.
And it's good experience, what was that experience like without getting into specifics, but generally speaking, coming to a new country, having, an opportunity to kind of participate at least in a few of the things that you love and you enjoy. What was that experience like?
Well, I've been to Canada before
Oh,
when I
you've
was
been.
younger.
Hmm.
Yes, when I was 10 years old, I visited Niagara Falls and a little bit beyond. But this time I went deeper into Brampton, which was
Mhm.
it was great to see a lot. I got to see Triveni Mandir, I got to see a lot of other mandirs there, and I got to interact with a lot of people there. And just interacting with the community was very much, it was almost just like New York, but it was equally as welcoming as any other place I've been to. And, engaging with people from a new area or people from a new, you know, state or country, it's always something that I love doing because you get to learn a lot more about them. You get to learn about more about what they do. And it was very nice understanding, the strides that these individuals made for their community and the events that they always made together. And I had the opportunity of actually participating in the concert for Deepavali when I was there in Canada. And it was a great experience. I had a great time performing and also sitting alongside others watching the show. Very nice experience I had.
Awesome. And so you mentioned something about some similarity with the States. So, um, like what's the overall, apart from the opportunity you've had in terms of, participating and, with the singing piece of things and visiting different temples and so forth. Um, did you had any sort of cultural shock when you came, or did you kind of fit in nicely? Because Brampton is very diverse. It is a very diverse city, I have to say, kind of like New York City. Um, did you had any cultural shock in terms of the demographic here at all, referring to the people, ethnic background here, or
I would say my
or not
only
necessarily?
cultural shock was it wasn't really that much of a big one, but I think it's still very major, is seeing a lot more of the Indian community involved in our, satsang, and involved with our worship and services and so on and so forth. Because it's my understanding that a lot of people from Bharat do keep themselves separate from what we do as Guyanese and Sanatan Dharma. But seeing, both of them to come together and, work together on things like this and in concerts and even coming to Mandir together was, a little bit of a shock for me. It wasn't something that I was really common or accustomed to seeing because I know them to be very much separate in the States. They don't really intermingle a lot. But it is also one of my dreams one day to have that gap or between the Indian community and the Guyanese community or the Trinidadian community, the West Indian community, to kind of be bridged one day. And, in Canada, going to Triveni Mandir, going to the Hari Narayan Mandir and seeing, both demographics together wasn't really much of a cultural shock, but it was something inspirational, I would say.
Yeah. So here in Canada, they do encourage a lot of inclusion and inclusion engagement and things of that sort. Keep in mind the Guyanese Trinidadian community and so forth, it is much smaller. I mean, it has grown over the years, but it is much smaller in terms of population wise in comparison with like the Indian community in general. When I say Indian, I'm talking about people directly from like in India or the Sikh folks and things of that sort. I've seen Sikh temple so huge you're not gonna believe it. And that's because they have a bigger kind of more people, but also maybe there's more support too, because when I look at that temple, I'm thinking to myself, like financially, it's definitely not easy to maintain something as such. I'm talking about huge, big stuff, right? So you need lots of good people to manage it, you need lots of, you need good executive people. Because at the end of the day, yes, it's a place of worship and all of that, but it costs money, there's money involved in terms of keeping it going and all of that as well too, right? So yeah, so hopefully the West Indian side of things can kind of make a bigger impact as well too. But I think we all play a little role on that as well too. Because it can be a struggle when you are a smaller community. Because I believe, without me mentioning specific name here, I know one of the temples, West Indian Guyanese type of temple, it took them almost 20 something years to really get permission for a land to build a bigger temple. And so a lot of hurdles along the way when you are a minority group as well, too, things of that sort. So I'm glad you had a good experience. So I'm assuming that means that you will come back if you have the opportunity then,
Of course, I will come back.
right?
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. So do you dream of or do you have any desire to kind of visit any specific place, like say different, because I mean, state itself, has, so many states there, we have like Florida, people very engaging with these kinds of culture, even Minnesota, places like that. Like, have you ever visited like places like Minnesota, California, or California? It's also, not California, but Minnesota for sure. Like, we have lots of like West Indian Guyanese people living there. Like, have you gone there before, or not really?
So prior to going to Ghana, actually, back in May, I went and visited Florida for almost 2 to 3 weeks. I had the honor and opportunity of meeting a lot of individuals. Some people from the Hanuman Mandir, some people from the Jyoti Mandir as well, Pandit Ramakrishna. I had the honor of meeting as well. So Florida, I've definitely visited as well. Michigan, I've also visited in terms of temples. I wouldn't say there's a large population of West Indian people there, but there's of course some population of Indian and a small population of West Indian people and individuals there. But definitely visiting different states is something that I want to do a lot more. I know there's a lot more individuals in Texas, a lot more people in Minnesota, a lot of more people in Virginia, a lot of people in California as well, as you mentioned. So I do definitely want to one day visit slowly but surely all these other mandirs and branch off just a little bit more.
Absolutely, for sure. Because I think it's going to be good experience for you to kind of be, to really, share your knowledge. You learn as well too. You connect with people, all of these types of things for sure. Um, I do not, well, we have a few minutes left here, and I do not want to, turn our conversation into anything negative or anything of that sort. But I would imagine that, being young, because we have lots of pundits, there with different experience, different age group, all of these types of things. I would think that it is fair to say that it can be challenging as well too, in terms of doing what you do, because at the end of the day, we work with people, and that can be challenging at all. Are you able to navigate yourself, where you can still move forward, doing what you love, and not being too concerned with the noises around you? I tried my very best here to put put a positive spin to that question.
I mean, there are certain levels of and individuals that are very much involved in exclusivity, very
Mhm.
close communities type, deal. I would say despite, them having their own close communities and also, had certain blockages in that matter or aspect, I would say that I've been able to freely practice as I choose. And I have tried my best to stay away from close communities as much as possible.
Yeah. Yes, I mean it is not uncommon, right? It's not uncommon for those things to kind of happen. And do know that life in general, right? We will have those challenges. There will always be things in the way, but we now have to stay very focused and make sure that we are not allowing any of those negative energy to get in the way. It can be hard at times. There's no question about that. It can be hard when you know that, and I'm gonna say it in simple language here. It can be hard knowing that support is not there, that open arm of welcoming peace is not there. These things exist everywhere. There's no question about that. They exist in the workplace. They exist in religious places. They exist everywhere. But we cannot allow any of that to hold us back. So something to keep in mind. I want you to know that. Because at the end of the day, the only person who can stop us from moving forward and really navigate things through, so that we can, cross a finishing line is ourselves. Like that, I'll tell you for sure. Like we have that power within. And earlier you mentioned about when you have God on your side, nothing else matters, right? So always keep that peace in mind, there. So I just want to make sure I hammer that piece out, for sure. So you are 20, you're soon to be 21. Where do you see yourself, you know, um, 2 years from now, a year from now?
2 years from now, a year from now, definitely going to finish my degree.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Definitely going to pursue higher education. And at some point, I definitely want to visit India as well. There's a lot of places in India that I really badly want to go visit.
Hmm.
Not just because, it's nice, but because I want that experience. I want to, experience what it is to actually go on a yatra. Because, Vedas, Puranas, I always talk about going on a journey of that sort, but I always want to experience it myself. And I'm waiting for that day where I can actually go to India and spend the time there, maybe like good 2 to 3 months, just exploring the entirety of India from north to south. And I think that's going to be one of the things that I really look forward to in the next couple of years. Finishing my education, definitely getting myself settled into the position that I want to be in terms of work,
Hmm.
and definitely also I do want to dabble a little bit more in academics as well, especially in regards to Sanatan Dharma. Maybe opening, even doing more forums just like this with the
Hmm.
Dr. Narine Dat Show, and especially exploring more avenues of educating other individuals about Sanatan Dharma. That's something I definitely want to do more as well. Perhaps I see myself doing music in the future as well, exploring more into doing a lot more of concerts, a lot more of shows, because I've done concerts and shows before in the past, but I really haven't revisited doing more community events. So
Mhm.
definitely doing more community events, definitely involving more of the community is something that I want to do in the next 1 to 2 years time. One to 2 years time, yes. And most definitely, I do want to see myself being a better individual than what I am today, and definitely progressing a lot more.
That is excellent. So basically, what you have just said to me there. So thank you so much for responding, by the way. So basically, you basically just told me that you have long-term goal and short-term goal and so forth, which is key in life. In life, if we don't have any sort of goal, life become very boring. It becomes very, meaningless and all of that. Once we have goals in life, life becomes so meaningful. We are living for a purpose, right? We have reason to get up in the morning and things of that sort, which is awesome. So I will advise you from a professional point of view here to continue along that line in terms of setting goals. So you always want to have short-term goal because it feels good when you are accomplish things in your own personal life. And then definitely you want to have, bigger goals, long-term goals that will take longer time to kind of achieve, because if you don't have any of that, you will never grow as a person. That's for sure. There were a few specific things I wanted to ask you, but I wouldn't ask you on air because in life, something we cannot, it's not worth it to put everything out there. You know what I mean? We have, so meaning that even our personal, because the way I operate, and I think that comes over time based on experience and so forth. I do not necessarily put my goals out there per se, but I'm not afraid to reveal my impact and the result per se. Right. And so I focus on my, on my goal because I have goals as well too, but I do not necessarily share my personal goal, in the open public. Because for me that's not important. Because that's my personal goal kind of thing. So I was going to ask you something along that line, but I don't think it's important here to kind of ask you. So we have a couple minutes left here. So I want to take this opportunity here, by the way, to kind of really letting you know that I appreciate you, taking the time off your busy schedule to join us to educate the audience. I can assure you that your time here is very much worth it. The information you share throughout the whole interview here has been extremely fruitful. And whatever you share, you'll be amazed to know the impact you're making without realizing all of that, right? Not everybody, um, you know, take the time to show the appreciation, or not as appreciation, but reach out and say, look, you have reminded me of something that I always thought of, but I didn't have that willpower, or I always put it on hold and so forth, right? It could be that you share something here today where it really prompt people and say, look, I'm going to take that Bhagavad Gita, right? You didn't mention a word per se, but I'm going to start to read that again. It could be that, or it could be somebody who don't believe in the Bhagavad Gita, but believe in, let's say, different religion per se. So look, I'm going to start to read that Bible, all of these types of things, right? So, and I hope people don't start to send me emails and so forth here because people have strong belief on certain topic and certain thing. But when it comes to our show here, we have a good way to separate our personal values from our professional values. So whatever I do in terms of religion has nothing to do with anybody else, and vice versa, so to speak, right? So we are very mindful of that. So I want you to know it was such of a pleasure to have you on here. Um, and I want to make sure I pause and take the time to kind of really to say it because I really mean what I've said. I'm now giving you the opportunity to say any last minute thing you would like to say, whether that be, something you wanted to say, but you didn't have the opportunity, anything along that line. But take it away and take control and kind of speak.
Well, I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you, of course, Bhaiji, Narayan, because having this platform where someone as myself can speak very freely and very openly about my own ideals and even just the ideals of Sanatan Dharma, as we will definitely do so in the future, is something that I would say is very much needed in our Sanatan Dharma. something that's very much needed for a lot of other individuals. And I can't wait for, especially in the upcoming weeks, for those questions to start flowing in as other individuals may answer some questions or ask some questions. And I can't wait to, delve into the Vedas and Puranas to find that factual proof and, help others understand what really Sanatana Dharma is about. The core values behind our religion, the core values behind what makes us who we are. And of course, definitely explaining through my own life and through, basic life practices, how we can become better individuals altogether. And I am very excited for what the future has in tow for us. And thank you very much for the opportunity that you've granted me, Bhaiji.
All right, so you stay right there. So in a couple minutes, we are going to close out the show, but then I'm going to give you a quick call afterwards so we can debrief very, very quickly about this here. So I'll kind of call you. And so, folks, I want you to know that we have dived deep and far to figure out what is it that we need, to close the gap. And we realize that, it is easy for us to get caught up in all the negativity and all of that, right? It is easy, but that can be very damaging, and so we have to be mindful of that. And so what we have done, we have created a safe space where people can come join and being part of something very positive because we will try our very best, the best way we know how to just share, only positive energy here. So we hope that you can continuously join us. Hopefully you take pride in sharing, our page so that we can, share, that positive energy with other folks as well too. That's going to be a beautiful thing. As I was mentioning earlier, we are going to have Pandit Prakash joining us, you know, um, several times. We are doing a different series. So, for example, he's going to be talking about specific topics. He's going to dive a bit deep and all of that. All of those information you will find on my page and his page and so forth in terms of the day, the date, but the time will generally be 6 p.m. Eastern time, Eastern Ontario, New York time. Well, we are hoping to stick with that. We may tweeting as we kind of go along, but originally when we started a radio show over 20 years ago, we kind of started, Sunday evening. We also recognize and we want, that there are other things happening as well too during this time. And if there is an opportunity for us to tweet it along, we probably do that too, because we do not want to compete with people here. We want to support folks and kind of engage with other people as well too, because it's not always about us per se. But all of that will be on our page, so you will see him, many more times because we're going to dive into important pieces. Um, but do know that we will have a variety of different guests on here. We will, hammer out some mental health pieces as well too. There will be lots of doctors coming on the show, very knowledgeable people in their area, because that's important, right? So you'll see all of that, and we hope that you will continuously join us, right? Because that's an important piece. We're doing it for you. We all taking time off to really engage ourselves in um, doing what we're doing here. So I personally, as we are officially approaching the end of our program here, the Dr. Narine Dat Show, I want you to know that we sincerely, appreciate you joining us. So on behalf of myself and our guest here, Pandit Prakash, both of us would like to join together and wish you a great today and even a better tomorrow. We'll see you next week. You do not want to miss our show. Well, we look forward to have you folks join us next week again. So that's a week from today, obviously. So hopefully you can join us then.
Yes, I'll be able to do so.